First of all, rapid fire. One, nothing's wrong with Bitcoin. Nothing's ever wrong with Bitcoin. Behind the scenes, Bitcoin is growing, evolving, and being adopted as strong as it ever has. Even in the past week, you saw Morgan Stanley announce that they're going to do a Bitcoin exchange-traded fund because they have so much demand from clients that they don't want to steer them toward BlackRock or Fidelity. So Morgan Stanley's going to do their own Bitcoin ETF. The Clarity Act, which Bitcoin doesn't really need in Congress, but is marching forward in Congress and will create a lot more stability for cryptocurrency in general. Even though Bitcoin already has that regulatory clarity, a lot of people don't know that, including a lot of people in Washington don't know that. They don't know that Bitcoin already has clarity from the CFTC and from the SEC and from the IRS and from the FinCEN and all these other agencies. They don't know that. But as soon as the Clarity Act passes in Washington, they will all know that because everybody knows that when that passes, it definitely applies to Bitcoin, even though technically Bitcoin already has that clarity from other things that have happened in the past. So all these things behind the scenes, if you keep up with Bitcoin, Twitter, if you keep up with, Facebook, Google, the Google News or anything like that, everything in Bitcoin land is marching forward, marching forward, marching forward. And so the question is, why is the price only 66,000? Well, because assets do this. It doesn't matter if it's Apple, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Tesla, Nvidia, Facebook. The best performing stocks in the world go through periods like this. They go through bear markets where for a period of time, they're sort of out of favor. And during that period, they're out of favor. The asset transfers from low conviction holders, which are people that own the asset. They bought it because it was going up. They got excited when it was going up. Now it's down. Now it doesn't appear to be going anywhere. They don't see all the progress that's happening behind the scenes because they're not paying attention to what's happening behind the scenes. They're not watching, Bitcoin, Twitter, all that sort of stuff. And so those people are slowly getting shaken out. They're getting bored. They're selling their Bitcoin. Other opportunities are coming along. They're getting excited by AI, or they're getting excited by precious metals, or they're getting, they're just getting bored with everything. Who knows? People just act irrationally if you leave them alone long enough with an asset. They start doing dumb stuff with it. They start trading it. But behind the scenes, tens of billions of dollars of Bitcoin are trading hands every single 24-hour period. So who's buying and who's selling? Well, the people that are buying are smart people that understand what it is. They understand that it's better to buy more of something when it's on sale than before it's on sale. So you see Strategy, the company led by Michael Saylor that used to be called MicroStrategy, they're buying tons of Bitcoin. You see the Bitcoin exchange traded funds, BlackRock and Fidelity. You see all of this Bitcoin buy demand happening. They're stockpiling Bitcoin on behalf of their customers. Corporations are buying Bitcoin. Even central banks in very limited supply, and it tends to be smaller, out-of-the-way countries, are buying Bitcoin. They're buying Bitcoin. Like, people are buying Bitcoin. And who is selling it to them? Average, normal people who don't understand what they sell, or they don't understand what they hold. They're not sophisticated, and they're going to look back and realize they blew the opportunity of a lifetime. So what I've noticed, in addition to this, is over the last 5 years, 8 years that I've been in Bitcoin, all of the people I've encountered who once upon a time owned more Bitcoin and now own less Bitcoin. It's not uncommon to talk to somebody. I talked to somebody the other day who was like, once upon a time they owned 20 Bitcoin or 18. It was like 18, 19, 20 Bitcoin, something like that. I was like, wow, that's a lot of Bitcoin. Like, what happened? Well, and then the stories come. They sold it because this, or they traded it for, Dogecoin or some other coin, or they were going to buy it back lower. They were going to sell it and then buy it back lower, or they started using options and futures and calls and puts and perpetual swaps and I don't know, a bunch of exotic stuff. And somehow they ended up with less Bitcoin. And so somebody who has 20 Bitcoin in the past now has a part of a Bitcoin now. Someone who had 2 or 3 Bitcoin in the past now has a tenth of a Bitcoin. Don't let that be you. Bitcoin's monetary properties have not changed. Bitcoin is the best money in the world. All of the people that matter, that are making sophisticated decisions about Bitcoin, those people are accumulating Bitcoin. The people who are selling it to them are the average Joe Blow who bought it because it was going up and now it's not going up, and he doesn't want to do the work to figure out if there's anything wrong with Bitcoin. Like, literally, if you are a smart investor and the price of your asset is down, you can go to Google. Why is Bitcoin's price down? You just type it in. Or go to ChatGPT. Why is Bitcoin's price down? Is there a good reason Bitcoin's price is down? And they'll tell you a bunch of reasons. There's political uncertainty, and there's wars all over the planet, and politicians are being stupid, and there's like a million reasons that all assets are getting dragged down. The stock market's getting dragged down. Oil is going way up due to the war in the Middle East, or the multiple wars in the Middle East. Like, all this stuff is happening. And if you ask Google or ChatGPT or any other AI, like, does that mean something's wrong with Bitcoin? They're going to tell you no. They're going to say, hey, this happens. Like, with every asset, stuff happens, people sell it, later they regret it, and what happens behind the scenes in a bear market is the asset is being transferred from weak hands to strong hands. That's what happens. So there's nothing wrong with Bitcoin. There's nothing that's happening right now in Bitcoin that has not happened at least 4 other times. There's 4 other major times in Bitcoin's history that the price has been down more than 50%. Right now, it's only down like, 45% or whatever it is. But 4 other times there's been long, significant bear markets in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin has gone on to set new all-time highs every single time. So 5 all-time highs in a row after bear markets. This is the 5th major drawdown of more than 50%. At least it was more than 50% back when the price dipped down to $60,000. And guess what? It's going to go on. It's going to set a new all-time high. It'll outperform all the other assets. It's the same story over and over and over. And what matters is how much Bitcoin do you own 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? How much Bitcoin do you own then? Not how much did you buy in 2025 and vomit over the marketplace because you couldn't keep it down in 2026. That's not what matters. What matters is not how much you used to own. It's how much you still own in the future when the price of Bitcoin is radically higher than today. Because there's a whole lot of people in the past who wish they had held on to their Bitcoin. The only reason the price of Bitcoin is not $1 million per coin today is because there's all these people in the past who bought it at $5,000 and sold it at $20,000, or sold it at $5 and sold it at $20. And then they don't want to buy more because they feel like an idiot. But eventually they have to because, hey, it's the world's best money. And you can either eventually buy it, or you can get left behind, or you can be, diluted in your ownership of stocks, or you can be, your purchasing power of the US dollar can be obliterated by inflation. Like, those are your choices. So everybody eventually ends up buying Bitcoin out of necessity. It's just a matter of time. But we're still very early. Like, 5% of the world owns any Bitcoin. And most of that is like people who own like $50 or $30 or $5. So the vast majority of the assets in the world, 99.9% of the assets in the world, are in other assets, not Bitcoin. In the future, that will be a radically higher number, not from just 0.1%. It will eventually go into multiple percents and then multiple tens of percents. And ultimately, Bitcoin, money, will be a significant part of global assets. And right now, it's like 0.1% because we're still just very early. It's like the internet. 17 years into the invention of the internet, almost nobody was using it. You can measure the invention of the internet either from, I think it's 1968 or 1981, depending on who you talk to and depending on what you want to count as the beginning. 17 years after that, almost after either of those dates, 81 or 68, almost nobody was using the internet, 17 years later. And then what happened subsequently is pretty much everybody started using the internet, or the vast majority of the world's population at some point somehow uses the internet in some way today. And it will be the same for Bitcoin. It's just a matter of time. Global adoption is marching forward. The technology is getting better. The platforms are getting better. The investment vehicles are getting better. The sophisticated investors are buying. Like, everything's on track except the price. And when the price is temporarily not on track, it's an incredible buying opportunity, because eventually, with every asset, the price will reflect the underlying value of the asset. In the short term, it typically doesn't. In the short term, the value of assets is all over the place and very frequently does not reflect the underlying fundamental value of the asset, because the price is just all over the place. In the medium term, it more closely reflects the value of the asset. And in the long term, it always eventually trends along with the value of the asset. Because if something is very valuable, at some point, everyone will figure out that, even if it's a point in the future. So my advice is the same as always. Buy as much Bitcoin as you can. Hold on to it for as long as conceivably possible. And literally, it's that simple. One last bonus note here is, if you wonder why I have not done as many videos this week as I usually do, one, I was out sick for a couple days this week, and so I'm finally getting close to being over that. And then one of my kids broke their ankle out of the blue while attempting to learn to skateboard. So anyway, and it was my daughter. She's 18 years old, and she does not know how to skateboard or has barely ever touched a skateboard in her life. And she was trying to learn, and she broke her ankle. So just when I thought I was getting over being sick and I was going to have time to do some videos, well, then me and my wife had to go get our daughter, who was in another state, and broke her ankle, all 3 bones, and pulled some tendon or ligament on top of that. Anyway, so we had to go get her and her car from another state and bring them back to Mississippi. And anyway, so it's just a lot going on. So anyway, hopefully I'm back to close to being able to do more consistent videos. I just got to get everybody in my family healthy and happy and over the hump. And that's step 1. And then, get my daughter and her ankle and all of that in a good place. And that's step 2. And hopefully I'll be back to Bitcoin video production and advocacy. But in the meantime, if you need anything, let me know. I'm always here. Nothing's wrong with Bitcoin. And it's on sale right now. You can buy a lot more Bitcoin for a lot less dollars right now than you have for most times in the last year or 2. And one day you'll be super glad you did. So same advice as always. Buy as much Bitcoin as you can. Hold on to it for as long as conceivably possible. The advice that has never been wrong, as long as you take a long-term perspective and, hold it for a multi-year period of time. It's that simple. Thanks, everyone.